Welcome back to Believers IAS Academy. In this today's particular video, we will be discussing about the fast track special courts as to an important body which was created to ensure speedy justice for those particularly who are sexually affected or sexually harassed, especially as far as the POCSO Act is concerned. So in this particular video, we will discuss what this particular fast track special court is, and also let's try and understand why this is in particular, particularly in news, is because of the recent data that it gave out in terms of the disposal rates of the cases, or especially the trials with respect to the one in Delhi, where it talks about that roughly about 43% of disposal, the trials were seen in the Delhi, which is absolutely low considering the name being fast track status, right? So this clearly shows how the justice is getting delayed, and also it talks about how this would clearly undermine the public trust on this entire body, or the sole purpose as to why this was created in the first place, right? So this is the ground on which we will be starting this particular video, based on the recent data where it clearly states that only 43% of the disposal trials that we have seen in Delhi's fast track special courts as of June 2025, which makes this important to study, not just for the fact that the data is out, but also for the very nature of the fast track special court scheme as to why it was implemented or brought into force in the first place. So studying about that, we have to understand this was the trigger to form this fast track special court was basically of all the events that were happening in India ever since a very long time, considering the rape instances which were happening on women, small children, and whatnot. So the famous Nirbhaya case in the 2012, where that demonic act which led to a lot of changes in the Indian demography in terms of law and in terms of how certain things are taken care of, or certain situations or certain laws are interpreted, gave out a lot of openings, and one of such opening was the FTSC, that is the fast track special court. So it was launched in the year 2019 as a centrally sponsored scheme by the government of India under the Ministry of Law and Justice, and the funding for this particular scheme of the government was through the Nirbhaya Fund. So now what is Nirbhaya Fund? So Nirbhaya Fund is that particular fund was started with an initial corpus of 1,000 crore by the government of India in the wake of 2012 Delhi gang rape, to support all those projects aimed at ensuring or enhancing safety and dignity of women in India, right? So it is managed by the Ministry of Women and Child Development, and as I said, it was initially started with a financial outlay of 1,000 crore, and as of today, the financial year 2025, a total of rupees 7,712 crore rupees has been allocated, of which 5,846.08 crore rupees have been utilized. So a part of Nirbhaya Fund, is utilized for to make sure that this particular scheme is implemented or extended, as we will study in the next point. So basically this was initially implemented for a period of 1 year within 2 financial years, starting from 2019 to 2023, but considering the importance of this particular body in terms of ensuring speedy justice, the government decided to further extend it from 2023 to 2026 with a financial outlay of more than 1,900 crores, right? So that is what is the last point, which discusses about its extension as well. But talking about the coverage, right? So approximately 1023 fast track special courts have been sanctioned from the government across the country, but sadly only 725 courts are right now functional, of which 392 have been designated or designed specially for or to handle the POCSO Act, right? So of course this is huge drawback, although the government specifically has allocated such a huge corpus of fund in allocating 1023 FTSCs, but still only 700. So that additional 300 approximate fast track special courts is still in a way justice denied for most of the people, because having this ensures speedy justice and also ensures it gives a safety net or a very immediate place to enhance or to ensure the safety of the woman and to also make sure that the dignity of women in India is respected, right? So this is with respect to the fast track special court. As far as the examination is concerned, this is more than sufficient to understand. And talking about the challenges, right? Now coming to the mains point of view, that about the fast track special court that we discussed in the previous slide, mostly that is sufficient for the prelims point of view. Now from the mains point of view, we have to understand the challenges and the gaps that still exists in these fast track special courts. So the first one is the number mismatch in terms of how much was actually sanctioned by the government and how much is actually right now functioning, which we discussed earlier, that right now around, as in the government, the sanctioned number of fast track special courts were 1023, of which only 750 to 700, 770 are right now functional. So this gap of 250 courts, right, means many districts still lack the special courts for quick disposal. And now what happens? The near consequence of this is the backlog of the cases that still persists. More than 2 lakh cases which are still pending, right? So this will still be pending no matter what, despite the policy push and despite the funds that are being allocated, is one of the huge challenge with respect to the fast track court system. Next being the human resource and the infrastructure bottleneck, which we will discuss, where it talks about the judge vacancies, the delays in the forensic department in collecting or giving reports with respect to evidences, and also the frequent adjournments in certain cases which are very sensitive and especially related to the POCSO. So it talks about how the DNA and forensic labs are overburdened with so many works in terms of how giving out the reports of certain cases, which usually is delayed and which eventually slows down the entire trial process. This is another important drawback of this particular fast track court system. And also talking about the adjournments, defense lawyers often seek repeated adjournments, right, and judges under pressure from high caseloads grant them. So this is also another huge drawback. So when we study about all of this, it is also important to study the new criminal laws which which has been recently implemented, which talks about safeguarding all these aspects, especially in POCSO Act, especially for women and children, where it clearly delineates certain timelines, deadlines in terms of the forensic reports that are supposed to be given to the investigation officer within just 7 days. It also talks about the hospitals which has to make their treatment free in terms of the first aid or any intensive care which is required to the victims of POCSO. And also it talks about many such changes that it has brought in terms of reducing the entire trial period, and also even in terms of limiting the adjournments to just 2 maximum adjustments which can be given to the POCSO cases, right? So this has ensured and to make sure that all these challenges are met. So of course it is very important to study the new criminal laws. If you have not studied, or if you don't know what that is, we have a video of the new criminal law which we have done previously, which will be linked in the description box below. Please do make sure that you check it out, right? the next important challenge is the victim support deficit. Right now we don't have the sufficient resource, or we can call it as the vulnerable witness deposition centers, right, which are very handful. So this is the important body or important office or important center, the vulnerable witness deposition centers, which acts as a particular institution which ensures to collect the sensitive data, sensitive evidences from the from the deceased or from the person who is the victim of the rape or any such sensitive cases. So having these in large numbers would actually ensure that the speedy process of the judgment, or even in terms of the evidence collection, will take will be taken care of. So that is a huge problem, because we have very few handful of these vulnerable witness deposition centers, which right now are like is very important to handle sensitive cases which are absolutely not present. Another important aspect is the lack of counselors and support staff, especially to make sure that we have trained psychologists or social workers to guide the victims, especially when they are going through that particular trauma of what they went through. Then even the female prosecutors, right? We have limited availability of women prosecutors, which affects the survivor comfort in testifying, against the particular crime, and also especially in sexual violence cases. So now even the new criminal law that we were talking about also brings this particular important change, where it clearly mandates that the women prosecutor, the investigation officer, should and must have a women prosecutor, especially to handle certain sexual harassment or violence cases against women, right? Now talking about the quality concerns, rushed trials. So in just to make sure that the name, the fast track special court is met, right? So the judges usually tend to push the cases, or try to give the verdict to the cases very soon, sometimes sacrificing the due process of the law, limiting the entire time for proper investigation, and also by making sure, and this particular way, where the speedy process of the disposal of judgments are given by the judges, limits the proper investigation and speed the evidence collection of the investigation officers, right? So this is another important drawback. So it is not the quantity that matters, but it is the quality that has to be ensured in terms of how the judges verdicts are being given, right? And then talking about the conviction rates, in terms of in many states, right, despite quick hearing, conviction rates remain still low, below 30 to 35% in many POCSO cases. So that is also another huge drawback. Although we have approximately 700 to 750 fast track special courts, still the conviction rate remains slow, right? Although the trials have been taken place, but still the conviction rates remain slow. Now the question is simple, or the answer is very simple. Why? Because of the push for speedy disposal, and now the investigation officer will also not find adequate time to collect sufficient evidence, and that is also another reason why the conviction rates are also very low. Next is the systematic reforms, which is missing, where speed alone isn't enough, but need for better investigation, and especially in terms of training police and prosecutors, and also strengthening the forensic department is also what is important in order to ensure that the quality of the fast track special courts is met, right? So ultimately, as part of way forward, one is to very important thing, to strengthen the judiciary, right? Appoint special judges, and also have child sensitive training. It is important to have victim centric infrastructure, right, to make sure that we increase the number of vulnerable witness deposition centers, to make sure that the evidence that are being collected, especially in sensitive cases, the numbers increase, and also to employ resource persons like child psychologists, especially to handle the trauma that poor child, that poor children would have went through, and to also have in-camera trials. Next is the tech upgrades. having features like AV, audio video recording, e-filing, digital dashboards for transparency. Of course, all of these things have been changed in the recent new criminal laws that the government has implemented. Please go check that video, and all of this is actually met, in fact, in this new criminal law that they have amended. And last is the sustainability, right, which is important to make all sanctioned fast track special courts functional. Right now we have about 700 and there is a huge gap of 250. So in order to make sure that the fast track special courts are using or giving what it is required to give at its fullest, we have to try and make all of this functional, and it has to also be monitored based on the data. The data driven monitoring is also very important to ensure how efficiently the fast track special courts are functioning in terms of disposing the cases or in terms of giving the final verdict. So that is also very important to keep in mind. So at the end, the fast track special courts are very vital response to rising the pendency in the rape and POCSO cases. So this is a very important body without which the government wouldn't even have tried to spend so much or extend it for another 3 years. So it is important to consider this as a vital body which is responsible or which can actually help India cater to its problem with the rising pendency in the cases. And also it is important to keep in mind the numbers alone don't guarantee justice. Just because the name says fast track special court doesn't mean every it has to achieve proper numbers, right? Because in a particular year, fast track court, there is a clear mandate that it has to clearly give verdicts or clearly take trials of 165 more cases. So this is the whole point of fast track special courts, right? 165 is the number which clearly talks about the minimum cases that it has to take care and give a final verdict. But just because the number is given, just because in order to achieve that particular target, doesn't mean that the verdict has been given without adequate judges or without sufficient forensic support, and also is not victim friendly infrastructure, right? So that is also very important to keep in mind, and also to ensure that the fast track court functions the way it is expected to function in order to ensure speedy justice to the desired and the deceased. So anyway, I hope you have understood what fast track special court is. This is all for this particular video. We've tried and understood both from the prelims and also from the mains point of view. So I hope you have liked the video. So for more such informative content like this, please do subscribe Believers IAS YouTube channel. Signing off, this is Madan Gopal. Have a beautiful day.